At its core, gaslighting is not just manipulation. It is the slow dismantling of your inner compass. The deepest wound is not confusion. It is the gradual loss of confidence in your own perception. The relational consequence is identity destabilization. You begin to doubt your memory, your emotions, even your sanity. This script will revolve around that erosion of self-trust. You don't notice gaslighting when it begins. It doesn't arrive screaming. It arrives softly. It begins with a sentence so small it feels almost harmless. That never happened. You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. I was just joking. And maybe, the first time, you let it go. But here is the paradox. The most dangerous form of control doesn't feel like control. It feels like correction. It feels like someone helping you see reality more clearly. It feels like you are the unstable one and they are the rational one. And if you've ever found yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, questioning memories you were once certain about, rewriting your emotional reactions to make them more reasonable, then you have felt the quiet destabilization of gaslighting. Gaslighting is not simply lying. It is psychological domination through distortion. It is the systematic replacement of your internal narrative with someone else's version of events. And the scariest part, it works. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. Human beings rely on relational mirroring to stabilize their sense of reality. From childhood, we develop our identity through reflected feedback. When someone consistently invalidates our perception, the nervous system begins to panic. The brain prefers distorted certainty over chaotic doubt, so it adjusts, it bends, and slowly you begin to shrink. Gaslighting preys on one of the most sacred psychological structures you possess, your sense of epistemic trust, your ability to trust your own mind. When someone repeatedly denies your lived experience, your brain enters cognitive dissonance. You feel the event in your body. You remember the tone. You recall the words, but the other person insists it didn't happen that way. Your system cannot hold both realities comfortably, so something has to give. And often, it's you. You start saying things like, maybe I misunderstood, maybe I'm too emotional, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. This is the beginning of identity erosion. But gaslighting rarely exists in isolation. It is paired with control. Control that does not always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks protective. I just don't like your friends. They're bad for you. I'm only criticizing you because I care. I know what's best for you. Notice the pattern. Your autonomy becomes negotiable. Your independence becomes suspicious. Your boundaries become selfish. Control works best when it disguises itself as love. At first, you may feel chosen, special, intensely understood. Many controlling personalities begin with idealization, a psychological hook known as intermittent reinforcement. They flood you with validation, attention, affirmation. Then slowly, they withdraw it. Now you are not only confused, you are chasing the version of them that once made you feel secure. This is where trauma bonding begins. The nervous system becomes addicted to the cycle. Warmth, withdrawal, warmth, withdrawal. Dopamine spikes during reconciliation. Cortisol rises during conflict. Your body becomes chemically conditioned to the instability. You start trying harder. You explain yourself more carefully. You monitor your tone. You adjust your behavior. You preemptively apologize. Without realizing it, you are reorganizing your personality to avoid triggering their disapproval. And this is the hidden sacrifice. You trade authenticity for safety. The gaslighter does not need to physically restrain you. They control the psychological frame. They define what is reasonable. They define what is dramatic. They define what is true. Over time, you begin to outsource your internal compass. You check their face before deciding how to feel. You rehearse conversations in your head. You second-guess your intuition. Hypervigilance becomes your baseline. This is not weakness, it is adaptation. If you grew up in an environment where emotional unpredictability existed, perhaps a critical parent, inconsistent caregiver, or volatile authority figure, your nervous system may already be wired to prioritize relational harmony over self-expression. Gaslighting feels familiar. It echoes an old survival strategy: minimize yourself to maintain connection. But familiarity is not safety. The long-term consequence of gaslighting is not just confusion, it is fragmentation. You begin to experience depersonalization, feeling detached from your own emotions. You suppress anger because anger destabilizes the relationship. You suppress sadness because sadness invites criticism. Eventually, you stop expressing, then you stop feeling, then you stop knowing. The most devastating sentence someone under control says is this: "I don't know what's wrong with me." Nothing is wrong with you. What is wrong is the system you are inside. Gaslighting thrives in ambiguity. That is why clarity is its enemy. When you start documenting events, when you write things down, when you replay them objectively, you often notice patterns: repeated denial, blame shifting, emotional reversal. Blame shifting is another key tactic. Suddenly, the conversation about their behavior becomes a conversation about your reaction. You are no longer discussing what happened. You are defending why you felt hurt. This inversion destabilizes you further. You leave conversations exhausted, confused, guilty, even when you entered them certain and calm. That exhaustion is not accidental. Psychological control drains cognitive resources. Your brain is working overtime to reconcile contradictions. And here is the most important warning: the longer you remain in a gaslighting dynamic, the more difficult it becomes to leave, not because you are incapable, but because your sense of independent judgment has been eroded. You may fear that no one else will understand you like they do. You may fear that you are actually the unstable one. You may fear that you are exaggerating. That fear is engineered. Control isolates. It subtly discourages outside perspectives. It frames others as threats. Over time, your social world narrows, and when isolation increases, dependency strengthens. But there is one thing gaslighting cannot fully destroy: your intuition. It may be buried, it may be quiet, but it is still there. That subtle discomfort you feel after conversations, that heaviness in your chest when you are told you imagined something, that recurring thought, "This doesn't feel right," that is your nervous system resisting distortion. Rebuilding self-trust begins with small acts of validation: naming what happened, saying internally, "I remember this clearly," allowing your emotions to exist without cross-examination. You do not regain autonomy overnight. You regain it in increments, by noticing patterns, by seeking external perspectives, by reconnecting with people who mirror you accurately, by tolerating the discomfort of disagreement. Because here is the truth: healthy relationships allow two realities to coexist. They allow conflict without annihilation. They allow correction without humiliation. Gaslighting cannot survive where boundaries are firm and perception is honored. And if you recognize yourself in this dynamic, the most radical thing you can do is stop debating your own memory. Control requires your participation in self-doubt. When you withdraw that participation, the system destabilizes. You may feel fear, you may feel grief, you may feel anger that has been suppressed for years. That anger is not toxic, it is protective. It signals that a boundary has been crossed. The dark psychology of gaslighting is not dark because it is loud. It is dark because it is subtle. It operates in tone shifts, semantic reframing, emotional minimization. It convinces you that your pain is irrational. But pain is data. Confusion is data. Chronic anxiety in one specific relationship is data. And when you begin trusting that data again, something extraordinary happens. Your posture changes, your voice steadies, your questions become clearer, your tolerance for distortion decreases. The erosion of self-trust can be reversed, but it requires one foundational shift: believing that your inner experience deserves authority. Gaslighting steals narrative control. Healing reclaims it. You are not dramatic. You are not unstable. You are not too much. You are someone whose reality was repeatedly questioned. And the moment you decide that your perception matters, that your memory counts, the fog begins to lift. Control depends on confusion. Clarity is rebellion. And the first act of rebellion is this: trust yourself.